Hello, my name is Ron Eman. I'm the director of Northwest Baptist Missions. Northwest was started in 1969 by Dr. Wally Higgins, Pastor John Lovegrove, and a couple of other mission-minded pastors with a desire to see gospel-preaching churches started in the West. Its early focus was to help church planters who were laboring in difficult areas that were predominantly influenced by Mormonism. While this is still a pressing need, we have expanded our vision to 12 states that make up the Northwest region of our country. Postmodern America is in desperate need of replanting churches in areas where modernism has destroyed the truth and passion of many churches. There are also regions in the far Northwest that represent the most unchurched areas of our nation. Our part of America is very diverse, geographically possessing some of the greatest natural beauty that our country has to offer. It is equally diverse in its ethnic populations: Hispanic, Native American, Asian, diverse in its rural and urban settings, and last but not least, diverse in its religious influences, or in some cases, lack thereof. Our motto, "Reaching the Western Heart from the Heart of the West," reflects one of the unique aspects of Northwest Baptist Missions. Our headquarters is located in the Salt Lake City area, which is the very center of the 12-state mission field. Our focus is very narrow, in that we exclusively are a church planting, church rescue agency, and only to this region of the U.S. We work with church planters and sending churches to bring each new church to a self-supporting status, graduating them as autonomous, independent Baptist churches. We partner with and seek to reproduce churches that are in the historic Baptist independent fundamental framework, with an evangelistic passion and a balanced, non-tangential philosophy. We're usually involved in helping between 20 and 30 mission churches at a time, while constantly seeking new areas where the gospel needs to go. We encourage church planting teams made up of 2 or more families with the support of a strong sending and supporting churches focused on an area where there is little or no gospel influence. If you're considering how you might serve God in the West, it may be valuable to hear from others who have responded to the call of God to do just that. We recently sat down with some of our church planters and their wives to gather their observations and experiences. Some are veterans of many years, while others are fairly new to the challenges of church planting. In the West, and particularly the Mormon West, you may be the only gospel-preaching church in a large area, which makes for some very unique challenges.
We are church planters sent through Northwest Baptist Missions, planting a church in a town of only 1,200 to 1,500 people. And the church previously had been thriving, and then through a series of events it closed its doors, and we're there seeing God open the doors again, and been there for now 6 years.
One of the very unique aspects of our ministry is that, and particularly compared to other areas, is that we are ministering in a county where in the entire county our church is the only non-Mormon church, which is pretty unique in the United States of America today.
We came to Idaho 1958, and the reason was the burden on our heart. We'd heard there's a lot of towns out here, small rural areas, that have no Bible preaching church, and we just felt God was calling us, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature.
Beaver City, where we are, is the county seat of Beaver County. Beaver County is about 10,000 people. In Beaver County, There's ourselves, a charismatic church, and then a Southern Baptist church considered a mission. They don't call themselves a church, just those three. There are no other gospel preaching churches in that whole county.
Hayden, Colorado is located in the northwest corner of Moffat County. It's nestled between two larger towns, Craig to the west, which is about 9,000 people, Steamboat to the east, which is approximately 9, and during ski season it'll go up to 15,000. We have one grocery store, 2 gas stations, and 3 churches. And our church is one of them. There is another very liberal church, and then the third church is the Congregational Church, basically the established church of the town. And the pastor of that town and I don't really get along because I believe she preaches too long. So we just kind of agree to disagree on our doctrinal stands.
With these unique challenges come unique blessings and opportunities.
In a large church, your 14-year-old daughter probably wouldn't be able to teach Sunday school because there would be plenty of adults in line to do that. But in these little churches out here, our kids are used more and they learn to serve at an early age. That's an advantage.
You have to be prepared to fill in anywhere because there are not enough people in the churches and that sort of thing that are able or have been taught to pick up those ministries, children ministries, music, just endless opportunities there. But
to get involved in the community is also a really important thing. Look for opportunities. Look for a book group or a quilting bee or something that you can just become a part of without compromising, without going to their church or something like that. But I know some people have helped with 4-H, other things like that that you can look for in a community that you can be involved in. Get to know people, help them to begin to trust you. Because the first thing when you move to a community, they don't trust you. They're suspicious and they don't know why you're there. They have probably, in many instances, never even known anyone like you. And they need to learn that you truly care about them.
My wife and I have had the opportunity to go actually visit a regular Mormon church service on a Sunday. And very, very enlightening to see from their perspective exactly what they experience every single week. It has greatly increased our burden for these people. We just see what a hopeless situation they're in, trying to live up to something that it's really impossible to live up to.
The LDS doctrine of eternal progression, always learning, always growing, doing more, doing your part, is so ingrained into them. It's hard to grasp the concept of grace and grace alone.
I think of a lady in Rexburg when Ray was there, and I went up for a Bible study. This lady came, and just instantly there was a bond there. And she was from an LDS community, almost 100% LDS. And she continued to study, to come to the Bible study. And I would remark to John how she was learning and her talk was different. And she had a daughter who had been saved. The daughter said to me one time, "Mother will never, ever make a bold stand for Christ and come out." Well, she did take that stand, was baptized, joined the church, was was one of the workers with their king's kids, and just recently the Lord took her home. But that suddenness of just the bonding that God did.
To me, the calling is of a missionary pastor. It's wonderful to have a few people that we can be a pastor of, to shepherd them, to see them growing in the Lord. But at the same time, we've got to be a missionary. There's the rest of the world all around us, and we're always with the focus that there's unsaved people out there we need to reach, and we need to win them.
One of the exciting new opportunities that we are involved in is the open door to Hispanic ministries.
The need is all over the country, but the unique need here, and some of the uniqueness of reaching Hispanics here, and the urgency of that, and what our plans are, and we're not trying to start Spanish-speaking churches necessarily, but we're trying to get churches that are here and established that have already, broken into the Mormon community to break out and reach Hispanics, because it can bring a real life to the church, because eventually you got the kids that are going to go into, they're English speaking, and you have you've got you got to deal with them in English, but you got to deal with the parents in Spanish, because they don't get that. They don't understand it as well, and it doesn't sink in. You can't get any discipleship done unless you're doing it in their own language. So there's unique challenges, and I really want to, challenge missionary kids that have been on the mission field to, that are bilingual already, come out and do a bilingual work. Just to start a Spanish-speaking church, the problem is it's longevity, because as you're reaching Hispanics in the States, we are still in the States, and the kids go into public school, they learn English, and very soon they can only speak and write English. I mean, they do speak Spanish at home, but it's just the home language that they know. So in Sunday school, in the teaching programs, we had to go to English because that's all they can read and write, because that's what they're learning in school. So those kids will eventually want to get out of the Spanish speaking. As the longer they're in English speaking schools, the more English they're exposed to, the less they want to be in the Spanish speaking crowd. So as our youth is growing up, they're not growing up to be Spanish speaking in a Spanish speaking church. So that's why the connection to a good, solid English church is a viable option. But you still have you have new rotating people that need Spanish only. You're still dealing with two cultures, and since I'm a bilingual pastor, and the way I preach to one group and the way I preach to the other is completely different. I can even have the same passage of scripture, but yet it's applied completely differently because of the cultures. And the only way we can know that is if you are bicultural.
I think one of the unique things that comes out of our ministry, that can come out of our ministry, is we have young people now coming up through our church that are going to be thinking about what they want to do with their lives. And they're second, third generation young people, so they have both languages down, they have both cultures down. They feel comfortable in both. They can go either way. And so these young people are going to be thinking about where they want to train. And if we can guide them into the Christian colleges, and they can get the burden for their own people right here in the States, those are the perfect people to train and come out and take these works that we're starting.
So it starts with that prayer, the preparation of the heart of the pastor, the preparation of the heart of the people. And then I believe God will bring that person. And we're praying for the Lord of the harvest, to Him to bring young people who are bilingual, who will come out west, who can do these types of things. And we want to be able to be training young men, young couples that are bilingual and bicultural here in the States already, and make them available, for these churches. And that's part of our ministry with Northwest.
It is important to spend time intentionally praying for God's leading and how He might use you.
I would encourage young couple to be sure of God's calling, and then to come and look carefully at what's going on, and to visit some of these mission works, and talk to these men and try to get a feel of what they're going through, what they're doing, and what their challenges are. I think to see a need, to see an opportunity, the measure of your responsibility becomes the measure of the opportunity that's before you. And so for me to see an opportunity, can I do something about it? And if I can, and there's opportunity, I ought to latch on to that and consider it a call of God, that I better get in there and do something.
Being from New England, being from Connecticut, Connecticut's a very desolate place for the gospel. So I was ready to go back there, but then after being exposed to the West, I thought, ooh, here's another area. I prayed probably over a period of 6 months and just, God, where would you have us to go? What do you want us to do? And interesting enough, in Luke, where it says a prophet's not accepted in his own country, I realize that's referring to Christ and how he was accepted by his own people. But nonetheless, the Lord used that verse to just kind of cement that he didn't want me to go back to New England. He wanted me to come to a different place. So between praying the peace of God and really that verse over that long period of time, that's kind of how God cemented it for me.
I grew up in a decent-sized church in Indiana, and then in college, of course, we were in a town where there were gigantic gospel-preaching churches everywhere. And then you come to the West and you see the field for yourself and you see the need. And personally, I don't see how a Christian who cares about souls cannot visit the West and not see the need and have a burden. And I realize a burden doesn't always equal a calling, but for me, that was what the Lord had for me, and he gave me peace about that. And
Growing up in a rural area and having an uncle that was serving through Hiawatha Independent Baptist Missions, and having a concern for country people, rural areas, and then hearing preaching about up in Montana, all of the many, many communities where it may be 20 miles or more to any Bible preaching church. And in that Bible verse, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Every person needs opportunity. Somebody needs to try to reach them. I wonder, has anybody ever been to that home to bring a witness to them? And so God used these different things to lay it on our heart. Here was a place that could use us, but here's a need. And it's still here, many of these rural areas that need a witness to them.
I would, by no means would I consider myself a flamboyant pastor. Would I consider myself one of the best preachers I've ever heard or anything along those lines? But one thing God has put into our heart is simply being faithful. And that's not just of our ministry, but all the men out here. That determination. If anything's going to be heard from me, I want to plug that if a person is really looking to dig in, the West is a ministry for them.
I believe if a young man was coming to the West, having never come, first off, take a survey trip and just come out and enjoy. Take your survey trip to see the area. The land is absolutely beautiful. There's no explaining it. But the second aspect of deciding to come to the West is really making the commitment. There's going to be times it's going to be very lonely. And there's going to be times when your best friend will be your wife, and that's all you've got to hold on to because everything else in the world is against you. But the commitment made is worth the any struggle you'll have. Westerners, really, we say this tongue-in-cheek, but I think it's true in the West, is they really do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. When you are there and you're helping them to do various things around the house, fix fence, or go build a fire pit, or go mow the lawn, or go scrape the snow, when you go out and just spend of your time taking care of the needs of them, they will build a relationship that will last forever. So my recommendation to a young man that is coming to the West, first off, is don't get hung up on the lure and the romance of the West. Desire the hearts and the souls of the people. If you see the hearts and souls of the people, then the West will truly be something that you'll love, and you'll love it more than ever.
Whatever the experiences, the one constant is the fact that Jesus Christ has declared he will build his church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. The greatest privilege of any person is to be used of God to accomplish his will. Maybe God is burdening your heart to be a church planter or to come and help a church planter. Not everyone is called to the West. But if you are, we would ask you to prayerfully consider partnering with Northwest Baptist Missions. Our desire is to simply be used of God to help see His church built throughout the Northwest. The harvest truly is great. The laborers are few. What would God have you to do?